After my husband died, the silence in the house became louder than any sound I'd ever heard. The clocks ticked, the wind moved through the trees outside, but inside, it was like time had given up on me. I spent weeks walking past his garage without looking in. That place had always been a sanctuary, his kingdom of tools and old radio tunes, the one space I never tried to claim as mine. But now it sat like a ghost at the edge of the house, a sealed vault of a life I could no longer touch. The realtors had been patient, but they kept reminding me, if you're serious about selling, the garage has to be cleared. I nodded, pretended I was ready, but every time I reached for the keys, my hand would shake. It wasn't the dust or the boxes or even the memories that scared me. It was the unknown, what he left behind, and what it might still say to me. The day I finally unlocked it, I felt like I was trespassing. The door creaked like it hadn't been opened in years, though it had only been a few months. Light spilled across the room, and suddenly I was standing inside a time capsule. His jacket still hung on the chair. The old radio was frozen mid-song, the dial stuck on his favorite country station. The air smelled like oil, wood, and him. I stood there for a long time, letting the memories hit me like waves. Then I started sorting. Tools. Shelves. Boxes labeled in his handwriting. Neat, sharp, always in capital letters. Winter parts, Christmas lights, junk, don't touch. That last one made me laugh through tears. But then, tucked in the back corner, behind old tires and a broken snowblower, I found a wooden crate. No label, no dust, like it had been moved recently. Something about it didn't fit. It didn't feel like junk. It felt intentional. I pulled it out, knelt down, and opened it. Inside was a stack of notebooks wrapped in plastic, a small velvet box, and a letter with my name on it, in his handwriting. My heart dropped. I hadn't seen his writing since the funeral program. My hands trembled as I opened the letter. It read, "If you're reading this, I guess I didn't have the chance to tell you in person. There's something I've been hiding, not out of shame, but because I wanted the right moment. I guess I never found it. So here it is." I stared at the page, stunned. I didn't know whether to laugh or scream. This was more than just garage junk. This was a secret, a confession, a story I never knew I was a part of. I opened the notebooks. Page after page, date after date, it was a journal. Not about his daily life, but about a project he'd been building in secret. A project, he said, was meant for the day I'm no longer around. Every line felt like he was sitting beside me, guiding me through the pieces of his heart I never saw. He wrote about mistakes he made, about things he wished he'd told me sooner, about dreams he was chasing for both of us. But then, halfway through the third notebook, he mentioned a name I didn't recognize. Ellie. He wrote, "Ellie turns 18 this year. I hope she's everything I imagined. She deserves to know the truth." My throat tightened. Who was Ellie? I flipped the pages frantically, my fingers smudging the ink as I searched for context. And there it was, buried between old engine diagrams and plans for a homemade music box. My husband had a daughter. Not with me. Not during our marriage, thank God. But before me. Before we met. A girl he had only seen once. Her mother had disappeared, moved states, left no trace. He said he tried to find her for years, even hired someone once, but never told me because he didn't want to bring pain into our peaceful life. He wrote, "I wanted to tell you 100 times, but every time I looked at you, I saw peace. And I didn't want to be the storm." And just like that, my world tilted. The velvet box inside the crate contained a tiny gold necklace, delicate, old-fashioned, with a letter, E in cursive. Alongside it was a document, a trust fund, set up in her name. My husband had been quietly putting away money for a daughter I never knew existed. It wasn't betrayal I felt. It wasn't even anger. It was grief layered on top of grief. I thought I had buried him once, but now I was burying 1,000 unspoken truths. He hadn't hidden this because he was cruel. He hid it because he was broken in ways I never saw. The notebooks told me more about him than 10 years of marriage ever did. Not because he lied, but because he feared the truth would ruin the life we built together. And in a strange way, I understood that. I respected it. But I also knew what I had to do. The rest of the week became a mission. I scanned pages, traced every clue, every address, every scrap of memory he left. I contacted lawyers. I hired a private investigator. I turned over every stone. And then, 2 months later, I found her.
Ellie.
Living in Arizona. College student. Studying music. I didn't tell her everything at first. I just introduced myself. Told her I knew her father once. That I had something that belonged to her.
We met at a small cafe.
She was nervous, and so was I. But when I handed her the necklace, she froze. Tears filled her eyes and she whispered, "My mom told me he didn't care. That he left." I shook my head, held her hand and said, "No, sweet girl." He never stopped looking. In that moment, I felt my husband again. Not in the air, not in the tools, but in her eyes. His eyes. The same hazel flecks, the same left dimple smile. She was his story left untold, and now I had the privilege of helping her read it. She cried as she read the letter he wrote to her. We sat for hours.
She asked about him.
About his laugh, his favorite food, the way he danced when he thought no one was watching. And I gave it all to her. Every memory, every moment. Because love isn't just about holding on, it's about passing it forward. I never sold the garage. How could I? It wasn't just a room, it was a bridge. A last conversation.
A map.
I turned it into something new, a music studio. For her.
For Ellie.
She visits every few months now, and we sit on the old workbench and talk about the past and the future. Sometimes, she plays the music box he built from his journal sketches. And sometimes, she sings the lyrics he wrote on the last page. A father's lullaby for the daughter he never stopped loving. If you've watched this far, let me say this. Don't wait to say the truth. Don't wait to share the love. Life doesn't give you a warning. It gives you a chance. If this story touched your heart, I need you to do something simple but powerful. Hit that like button and subscribe. Not for numbers, but for the stories that deserve to be heard. There are millions out there, unspoken, unread, unopened. Let's change that together. Because sometimes the most beautiful things we find are in the places we almost never open.